Brian Lehrer on WNYC. So to end the show today, do you know the award-winning podcast Switched on Pop? They just launched a new series on Netflix. Wait, podcasts on Netflix? Yes, you heard that right. For the uninitiated, Switched on Pop has been described as a witty, accessible guide that illuminates the musical concepts behind modern pop hits. Their first two episodes on the intro and the verse are already out on Netflix. This 4-part series does break down the different components of pop songs, and that way they've got an episode each on the intro, the verse, the chorus, and the bridge. And they explain what makes each component really great, and they give some fun examples. So we pulled a few for the fun of it that we're about to play as we welcome the co-hosts of Switched on Pop, Charlie Harding, a songwriter and associate professor at the Berklee School of Music and an adjunct professor at NYU Steinhardt Music Performing Arts Professions. I almost said that right. And Nate Sloan, musicologist, associate professor at the USC Thornton School of Music. Welcome to WNYC, Charlie and Nate.
Thank you. Thanks for having us on.
Great to be here.
Your 4-part series begins by looking at the intro to pop songs, and you chose the 2004 hit, which almost everybody knows, Let's Get It Started by the Black Eyed Peas, that begins on Fergie's lyrics. So here's 19 seconds of that intro.
Let's get it started in here.
And the bass keeps running, running, and 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 running, running, and.
So good. Charlie, what are you hearing of this intro, and why is it a good example of a song intro?
Well, we needed a way to introduce ourselves to the Netflix audience, and so obviously, let's get it started. Here we are, we're introducing ourselves. This is a song that opens up with the main chorus hook, Let's Get It Started, kind of sets the vibe, it prefigures the best moment of the song, and then it tells you what it's going to do. The beat is going to run and run and run and run until the song finally arrives, comes in, and you have been, you have had the perfect little amuse-bouche for the song to come.
Amuse-bouche?
Yeah, something to whet the palate, something to excite you, to set the scene of what the song's going to be.
Now I know what they teach in music school. You say in your podcast episode that as a music professor at Berklee and NYU, your students know you for not really liking intros. You tell them to keep them as short as possible. What's your beef with intros?
Oftentimes intros can run on really long. Back in the 90s, the average number one hit song had an intro of over 4 minutes and nearly 30 seconds. Songs are typically around 3 minutes now. And so I like a song that just jumps right in, gets to the punch, you know what you're getting. Oftentimes the intro is the last thing that people write, and maybe they just kind of play 4 chords over and over again. If you're going to write a great intro, you have to give it a lot of time. And I think so often intros can be undercooked.
And the form of a song intro has fundamentally changed since the 90s. You tell us research shows that the average song length peaked in 1998, 4 minutes and 29 seconds for the whole song. So, Nate, before I play an example, how does that compare to the average song length today?
Today it's closer to 3 minutes. So, we've lost a minute and a half on average from our typical pop song over the last 20 years. And there might be some myriad reasons for that. One of them is certainly the way we listen. If you're streaming music on Spotify or another platform, artists try and grab your attention right from the start. They don't have time for a long intro. In fact, sometimes they'll even just start with the chorus of the song, which is something we typically encounter in the Billboard Hot 100 today.
So here's an example you highlighted from the past. This is the intro for the song Sonny Came Home by Sean Colvin from 1996. Yeah, and that's just 15 seconds of a longer instrumental intro, right? I think it's about twice as long. So, Charlie, what are you hearing in that intro? And is it a quote-unquote bad intro by your standards today? I personally like vocals that have a lot of well-developed instrumental settings like that was setting up.
Yeah, no, exactly. This is definitely one that sets the scene. I love the use of the mandolin. I'm a mandolin player. It feels like almost like the opening credits to a movie. It is establishing the entire world, and it does it really well by introducing each instrument part by part until the vocal finally arrives. But, in today's streaming listening, it's hard to have a intro that's this long. A stream is only counted if someone listens at least 30 seconds through a song. And so if you don't hear a vocal until the first 30 seconds, it's very likely that someone might hit skip. So there's nothing wrong with this intro. In fact, I think it's beautifully composed, but it's set for a music economy with a sort of different attention span.
Yeah, but Nate, I see you have a theory as to why intros used to be maybe so long, especially in the 1990s. Does it go beyond this, just kind of our attention span today of the Spotify environment and things like that?
Yeah, it may have something to do with, radio being a primary form of music consumption and DJs needing long intros in order to queue up the next song and talk about it. And I think we were also just more inclined to take our time. I have to say, one of the fun things about making this show is that we're learning as we do it. And I would not to spoil our first episode if you listen to it or watch it on Netflix, but I would say that Charlie has a different opinion of intros by the time we're done analyzing all these different examples. I think he's softened his stance on the intro, it's fair to say.
By the way, people may be wondering if this is a podcast from Netflix. Does it include video, or is this just an audio production of Netflix?
This is a video production. You get to see the entire thing with faces included. You also get to see how the music is made. So you might see us playing instruments. You might see song clips, etc. We live in a visually dominant world, and so being able to see what's happening in the music is a helpful way for people to listen more closely.
And in your episode, you talk about a 2010 research paper that says we can know a song almost instantly from a first impression. Can you explain that study? Just how little of a slice of an intro do you need to hear to kind of know something, about the song as a whole?
Yeah, the paper was called Plink, and it basically establishes the idea that we are often quite good at knowing what something is upon first impression. And this study plays 300 milliseconds of a song. That's like very short. And oftentimes you can just by 300 milliseconds identify what that song is by that one note, the timbre. People are remarkably good at, if they can't get the song, they can often tell what decade it's from. And so I quizzed Nate on a bunch of these really short snippets of music. And, he is a trained musicologist with a PhD, so he did remarkably well, but he did miss a few that I did trick him on.
Listener writes, by the way, amuse-bouche is a culinary gastronomic term. Just going back to that. Somebody else writes, can we get an honorable mention for the wonderful introduction to the Beatles, If I Fell in Love with You? All right, particular song that a particular listener likes the intro to. Another one writes the intro to Stairway to Heaven, which gives you no idea which is to come. So, those are two, classic rock references from two different listeners. I don't know if they prompt anything in you, Nate.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The Stairway to Heaven example is so interesting because it's also a case where an intro became the subject of a lawsuit. So that's a testament to how important introductions can be in setting the stage, that, it would even cause someone to sue for copyright infringement. And, regarding the amuse-bouche, I think if I could quote Shakespeare, if music be the food of love, play on. We're not above making a culinary metaphor here and there.
Love that. And you talked about the lawsuit with respect to Stairway to Heaven. The Black Eyed Peas initially caused controversy with Let's Get It Started. And you talk about how they managed to walk that back.
Yeah, the song was, rightly when it was released, really disregarded by disability rights advocates because it used terms that are really not appropriate, and that song was kind of that the initial version of the song was not that much of a hit, and they actually walked it back by when the NBA All-Stars game was going to be made, they wanted to make a version that would be, if you will, safe for television, and they rewrote the thing so that it got rid of all of its really quite inappropriate language, and then that song, the original song, has been basically scrubbed from history. You can sometimes find it on the internet, but the album, the vinyl pressing, they all feature the redone version.
And people are continuing to chime in with some favorites as well as some commentary. The intros to Papa Was a Rolling Stone and Shaft are iconic. Miss that, meaning miss the longer intro. Another person writes, music economy, yes, that's important for commodifying your art. Conversely, make the music you want to. I want a long intro, writes that listener. All right, let's go on to the second episode out on Netflix, tackling the verse. Nate, you don't think verses get a lot of love. So before I play your example of a good verse, can you define what it is and its purpose as you see it?
Yes, the verse is typically the first lyrical section of the song. It is the story of the song or the exposition of the song, perhaps. Usually it reappears throughout the song with the same music and different lyrics, pushing the narrative of the song forward. But it also has this kind of subservient role. It really sets up the chorus, which is the high point, the apex of the song. So we wanted to shine a spotlight on the verse and really celebrate it for its narrative role within a song structure.
So let's take a listen to probably one of the great verses of all time. It's from You Make Me Feel Like a Natural Woman by Aretha Franklin from 1968.
Looking out on the morning rain, I used to feel so uninspired, and when I knew I had to face another day, Lord, it made me feel so tired.
All right, we're all just going to go home now and let Aretha sing for the rest of the show. But Nate, what are you hearing in that verse that makes it so great?
It really sets the scene of the song. The song is so much a study in contrast. The chorus is so triumphant and cathartic, but to really appreciate that chorus, you need a verse that really sets up where the singer is at. The narrator is sad, forlorn, depressed, pensive, and that gives us somewhere to, when we finally get to the triumph of the chorus, it hits that much harder because we know what this singer has been experiencing. So the verse gives us that background that is so key for appreciating the chorus.
By the way, for you as a mandolin player, listener writes, heard you say that, and writes, REM's Losing My Religion has a fabulous mandolin intro. Somebody else just writes, Fugazi Waiting Room intro. Nick in Brooklyn has a question. You're on WNYC. Hi, Nick.
Hi. I just wanted to ask your guest if he thought that that music itself has been degraded by the media, by TikTok, by all the ways in which we consume music and all the ways in which the industry has failed to compensate musicians for what they do. And so everybody is desperate to get that intro out, and all the references that people are talking about are classic, including yours. I mean, the contemporary pop that you're citing is, from the 90s, and that's no longer contemporary, really. So I'm just wondering if music has gotten worse, and the purpose of music has been degraded to something
of pop music. And I will note that though we've used some older examples for this conversation, you do a lot on contemporary songs. I'll also correct myself. When I see that spelling, I think of fugazi, which is, kind of the word that's more in use, but Fugazi Waiting Room, of course. But what do you think about, Nick? Is this degrading the quality of music, not just how long intros are, either of them?
Yeah. Well, I love the question from Nick, and I have to say, it's been a privilege for Charlie and I to get to listen closely to pop music for the last 10 years plus, because it has really disabused us. of any notion of this music becoming worse or becoming degraded, despite all those pressures, despite the commercial pressures and the squeezing of the artist in the 21st century. We spoke to some musicians like Aaron Dessner, a producer who's worked with Taylor Swift, and he talked about creating the intro to Taylor Swift's song "Cardigan" by actually tapping his thighs in a rehearsal in a green room in Germany, and sending that track to Taylor Swift. And to her it sounded like cobblestones, and that is what led her to write that song. And we spoke to a contemporary singer-songwriter named Audrey Hobart, and she talked about intros or rather verses. And that being like writing a great essay
has to be the last word. People are going to have to go to the podcast from Netflix, Switched on Pop, to hear more. Charlie Harding, Nate Sloan, thank you so much. This was fun.
WNYC's journalism and storytelling is heard by millions of passionate listeners. Sponsors of our programming gain our listeners' attention and their respect. Learn about how your organization can support WNYC and WNYC Studios at sponsorship.wnyc.org.